Regular show has 244 episodes, but these 3 are the saddest. Starting off with number 3, Skip's story. The episode starts with Mordecai, Rigby, and Skips working on the roof of Pops' house. As they take a break, Skips tosses a sandwich to Mordecai, who catches it, but Rigby completely misses, letting it fall. Mordecai teases Rigby for not trying harder, leading Rigby to joke that things would be easier if he were immortal, just like Skips. They think living forever means endless fun, but they don't realize it also means an endless loss. To Skips, immortality isn't a gift. Curious, Mordecai and Rigby begin throwing out wild theories about Skip's immortality, but Skips tells them they have it all wrong. When they ask how he became immortal, he warns them that they won't like the story. However, they insist, and so he begins. Back in his teenage years, Skips, who was known as Walks back then, was talking to Headmaster Bennett, who warned him about his troubled past of getting expelled for fighting. But Walks wasn't worried. He believed school was useless for someone like him, an adventurer at heart. That's when a student named Gareth, or Gary, arrived to show him around. During the tour, Gareth introduced Walks to the Guardians of Eternal Youth. Suddenly, a massive brute named Chlorgivane the Destroyer stormed in, casually striking another student, Reginald, before declaring his dominance over the school. Walks immediately stepped up, warning Chlorgivane to leave everyone alone, but Chlorgivane mocked him, shoving him away. Just as they were about to fight, Headmaster Bennett appeared, forcing them to back down. As the headmaster left, Chlorgivane made it clear this wasn't over. At lunch, Walks was searching for a seat when a girl invited him to sit with her. She introduced herself as Mona, and the two quickly hit it off. Their bond grew, and they spent more and more time together. One day, Gareth and the Guardians of Eternal Youth approached Walks with a plan to defeat Chlorgivane. Since no mortal could hurt him, they showed Walks the Fists of Justice, powerful weapons designed for this exact battle. Walks was eager, until Mona expressed her dislike for guys who fight. Wanting to be with her, he made a promise. He would never fight again. He was finally willing to let go of his anger because he found something worth holding on to. But life rarely lets you leave the past behind so easily. Instead, Walks joined Mona's club, which focused on decorating for the prom. While helping with an underwater-themed setup, Walks developed new skills and fell deeper in love with Mona. A montage of their relationship followed, skipping school together, going on dates, and preparing for the big dance. They set their prom date and everything seemed perfect. But then Gareth delivered a troubling message. The only chance to defeat Chlorgivane was on Saturday at 8 p.m., the exact time of the prom. Torn between his promise to Mona and his duty to stop Chlorgivane, Walks hesitantly agreed to fight. This is the moment where his entire future could change. One path leads to love, the other to duty. But in the end, fate never really gave him a choice. You all see. On prom night, Walks picked Mona up, admiring the necklace she was wearing, the very one he had given her earlier. They danced together, and just as he was about to slip away, Mona asked for a photo. He hesitated, knowing he was already late, but agreed. Meanwhile, outside, Chlorgivane, Gareth, and the Guardians of Eternal Youth were waiting. When Walks didn't show, Chlorgivane lost patience. Instead of waiting, he stormed into the prom, grabbed Mona, and threw her across the room. Seeing her hurt, Walks abandoned his promise. Mona now understood Chlorgivane's cruelty and gave him her blessing to fight. He thought that by staying with Mona, he could escape the fight. But the fight found him anyway. Sometimes the things we run from catch up to us in the worst way. Walks attacked with everything he had, but Chlorgivane barely flinched. With one punch, Chlorgivane sent Walks flying. He finally chooses to fight, but it's not enough, showing how sometimes even when doing the right thing, it still isn't enough to save the people you love. Ready to finish him, Chlorgivane raised his rattle to strike, until Mona shoved Walks out of the way. The attack missed Walks but hit the ceiling, causing debris to fall right onto Mona. She was gone. The tragedy isn't just that she died, it's that she spent her last moment saving him, while he has to spend the rest of his life unable to save her. Heartbroken, Walks received the Fists of Justice from Gareth and finally landed powerful blows, launching Chlorgivane into space. But it was too late for Mona. Gareth and the Guardians of Eternal Youth could only return Walks' necklace. Now a painful reminder of what he had lost. Years later, Gareth and the Guardians approached Walks with an offer: immortality. Every 157 years, he would need to fight Chlorgivane again. But they warned him. Immortality meant outliving everyone he loved. Walks, holding on to Mona's memory, tearfully accepted. When asked what name he would take for this new life, he simply replied, Skips. He didn't choose to live forever. He chose to keep fighting because there was nothing else left for him. His only purpose now is to make sure no one else suffers the way he did. Back in the present, Mordecai and Rigby are left speechless, tears welling up as they process Skips' heartbreaking past. Rigby, still slightly clueless, asks if Skips ever graduated high school. Mordecai simply punches him. Skips shrugs off the moment and tells them to get back to work. As they walk away, saying how glad they are not to be immortal, Skips pulls out Mona's locket, revealing a picture of the two of them. A single tear falls before he silently returns to his task. This episode is a heartbreaking exploration of grief, love, and sacrifice. At its core, it's about how losing a loved one can change a person forever. Skips, once a reckless fighter, found love and tried to change for the better. But life had other plans, forcing him into a cycle of pain and responsibility. His story reflects the tragic reality of holding on to the past. No matter how much time passes, some losses stay with us forever. Skip's immortality isn't a gift, it's a curse, forcing him to relive his pain while everyone else moves on. And yet, despite his heartbreak, he continues forward, because even in loss, we have to keep going. Now for number 2, Stake Me, Amadeus. The episode begins with a montage of Mordecai and Margaret spending time together, highlighting their close bond. Later at the house, Mordecai tells Rigby that he's ready to take their relationship to the next level by taking Margaret to the fanciest restaurant in town, Stake Me Amadeus. Rigby is immediately skeptical about the cost, but Mordecai proudly presents Amadeus dollars, special coupons he collected from their co-workers by doing favors. He spent so much time trying to build up the perfect night. That's so sweet, right guys? Seeing Mordecai's dedication, Rigby gives him his own Amadeus dollars. Excited for the big night, Mordecai leaves for his date. Then Margaret calls, saying something came up and that she'll have to meet him there. When Mordecai arrives at the restaurant and presents the Amadeus dollars, the hostess discreetly presses a button, alerting the FBI, who immediately detain Mordecai. Just when he thinks everything is finally working out, it all comes crashing down. Yikes. Kind of the perfect metaphor for his love life. Now in an interrogation room, Mordecai is questioned by Kessler and Costello, 2 FBI agents investigating a counterfeit money ring. They soon bring in the entire park crew, all in handcuffs. Despite Mordecai's denial of any wrongdoing, the truth comes out. Popson knowingly bought the fake Amadeus dollars and has no idea who the supplier is, though he does have the phone number. Kessler is unconvinced and prepares to arrest them, but Mordecai desperately pleads, explaining how important the night is for him and Margaret. To him, this date isn't just dinner, it's his last chance to make things real with her. Costello sympathizes and convinces Kessler to give them a chance to clear their names. Together, the park crew and the FBI set up a sting operation to catch the counterfeiter. Mordecai and Rigby go undercover, wired and ready for the bust. Kessler allows Mordecai to spend time with Margaret. Mordecai sits down with her, anxious to talk. As he gathers his courage to confess his feelings, Margaret tells him she has something important to say, too. The way they both light up, thinking they're about to take the next step, is crushing. Neither of them realize that their big news is about to tear them apart. But before they can exchange their news, the counterfeiter arrives, forcing Mordecai to abruptly excuse himself by saying he has to go to the bathroom. Meeting up with Rigby, they confront the suspect and offer 10,000 Amadeus dollars in exchange for cash. All they need is for him to admit the money is fake while being recorded. Before they can get the confession, Margaret unexpectedly walks in, confused and hurt by Mordecai's suspicious behavior. She doesn't know it, but she just interrupted a sting operation. Their cover is blown. Suddenly, the counterfeiter reveals himself as the leader of the Capicola gang from the Fun Zone incident, now armed with a Tommy gun. He explains how he survived and turned to counterfeiting as his new scheme. Before he can eliminate Mordecai and Rigby, the FBI and park crew burst in, but at the same time, the rest of the Capicola gang arrives, leading to an intense standoff. As bullets fly, Mordecai shields Margaret, pulling her behind cover. In the middle of the chaos, he finally confesses his feelings, taking her hands and asking, "Will you be my girlfriend?" In true regular show fashion, the biggest emotional moment happens in complete chaos. But no fight, no explosion, no enemy could ever hurt as much as what Margaret says next. Margaret looks stunned, flattered, then her expression shifts. She looks devastated. Tears welling in her eyes, Margaret explains that she just got accepted into her dream university. She tells Mordecai that she truly cares about him, but they can't be together. Before Mordecai can say anything, she runs out of the restaurant, leaving him heartbroken. She didn't want to hurt him, but she had to. It's easier to walk away quickly than to look back and see what you're leaving behind. The Capicola leader sneers, but before he can finish, Amadeus Martinez blasts him and his gang away with a bazooka. Later, Mordecai is seen sitting alone on the roof, staring at the sunset. He lost her. And for the first time, there's nothing he can do to fix it. Rigby joins him and silently hands him a soda. They drink together in silence, watching the sunset. Just two friends. No words, just quiet support. This episode is about mistiming and the pain of moving on. Mordecai and Margaret had feelings for each other. But sometimes, love isn't about feelings. It's about timing, choices, and the paths we take. Margaret wasn't rejecting him because she didn't care. She was choosing her future. It also explores the feeling of helplessness in relationships. Mordecai did everything right. He did all these favors to have the perfect date, convinced the FBI for a change, and took a risk, expressed his feelings in the midst of a literal battle. That really hurt me. He did try his hardest, but some things don't fail because of what we do. They fail because life simply has different plans for you. And with the last scene, it isn't about fixing things. It's about accepting loss. Rigby doesn't try to cheer Mordecai up because he knows there's nothing to fix. He just sits with him. Because sometimes, all you can do is be there. And now, for the saddest of all, a regular epic final battle. The final episode begins with the park crew arriving in Lollyland, the birthplace of Pops and Anti-Pops. There, they meet Frivolocrenus, Quadravicrenus, and Weird Mushroom Guy, who reveal the truth about Pops and his brother. Their real names are Megacranus and Malumcranus, and they have been locked in an endless cycle of battles throughout history. Some battles seem impossible to escape from. No matter how hard you try, history keeps repeating itself. The Lollyland natives show the park crew ancient tapestries that depict past versions of themselves fighting alongside Pops, only for each battle to always end in a draw, causing the universe to reset every time. Determined to break this cycle, Mordecai suggests setting traps to give Pops an advantage, something that didn't happen in previous fights. Anti-Pops arrives in an Uber-like taxi, like this is just another day for him. Erasing the universe isn't a battle to him, it's a chore. He doesn't see Pops as a brother, just an inevitable inconvenience to deal with. Pops tries to reason with him, pleading that they are brothers and don't have to fight. Anti-Pops refuses, attacking Pops, but is caught in the traps. The victory is short-lived, as Anti-Pops easily breaks free. They thought they could change history, that this time would be different. But no matter how much they planned, fate was already written. Realizing the stakes, Pops offers a deal. Whoever lands the first blow will decide the fate of the universe. Pops managed to land the first hit, but Anti-Pops breaks the deal and continues the fight anyway. Some people don't fight fair, they fight to win. Some fights are simply never fair to begin with. As the battle escalates, the park crew and their allies, including HD DVD, Blu-ray, the Baby Ducks, and the Guardians of Eternal Youth, Chance Sure-Shot, Gary Death, and many more, fight against Anti-Pop's minions. Using their combined strength, they manage to defeat Streaming Modem and his forces. For a moment, it seems like they might win, but then Anti-Pops transforms into his Titan form and starts erasing Lollyland itself. One by one, the park crew members begin to fall. Muscle Man and High Five, Ghost, realizing they won't make it, share one last "my mom" joke before being erased together. They laugh because that's who they were. They didn't get a heroic last stand, just a quiet, inevitable goodbye. As Pops watches his friends disappear, his rage unlocks his own Titan form, and he launches a desperate counterattack. This isn't power, it's pain. He's not fighting because he wants to, he's fighting because he has nothing left. Despite his efforts, Anti-Pops erases everyone except Mordecai, Rigby, and Pops. The battle comes down to one final moment. Pops and Anti-Pops prepare to collide fists, the very action that always resets the universe. Mordecai suddenly remembers this and tries to stop it, but it's too late. The universe resets. This is the worst kind of tragedy, when you realize the mistake just as it's happening. The screen cuts to the very first episode of Regular Show, the exact way the series began. Mordecai and Rigby go through their usual antics, but something is off. Rigby starts experiencing déjà vu, slowly recalling everything that has happened. When Mordecai doubts him, Rigby proves it by digging up the futuristic Blu-ray box set from Cheer Up Pops. As soon as Mordecai touches it, his memories come flooding back. Imagine living a whole life, losing everyone, fighting to the very end, and then waking up like none of it ever happened. Realizing the universe reset incorrectly, determined to set things right, they use the power to escape back to the final battle. The fight continues, and Pops, now filled with grief and anger, fights Anti-Pops with everything he has. However, Anti-Pops starts to unravel reality itself, warping everything into surreal imagery. Pops is thrown in from Lollyland student film. Mordecai gets trapped in a storyboard, and Rigby is reduced to adhesive notes. The world is literally falling apart, but symbolically, this is what it feels like when everything in your life starts slipping away, and you can't hold on to anything anymore. As everything collapses around them, Pops finally understands what must be done. He realized that the only way to stop this cycle is to end it altogether. The saddest part? He doesn't hesitate. He knows his life was never meant to be lived. It was meant to be given. With one final act of love, Pops sacrifices himself, carrying Anti-Pops into the sun. As they burn away, Anti-Pops finally feels remorse, realizing the destruction he's caused. He spent eternity believing destruction was his purpose, but in the end, he knew it was just something he was told to do. It didn't need to be that way, but it was already too late. The two brothers died together, ending the eternal battle once and for all. With the cycle broken, the universe restores itself, and the park crew, after 3 long years in space, finally returns to Earth. Muscle Man meets his 3-year-old daughter. The last time he saw Starla, his child didn't even exist. Now she's running up to him, a person he never got to watch grow. Rigby and Eileen share their first on-screen kiss, and Mordecai notices Mr. Maillard grieving over the loss of Pops. He saved the universe, but he was still just a sweet son who left his sweet father behind. A memorial statue is built in Pop's honor, immortalizing his sacrifice. Time passes. Mordecai and Rigby quit their jobs at the park and part ways. The entire show was about them avoiding growing up, but in the end, even they couldn't stop time. Over the next 25 years, they each go on their own journeys. Mordecai becomes an abstract artist, eventually finding love with Steph, a fellow artist. They have 3 children together. Rigby marries Eileen, and they have 2 kids. Benson continues managing the park and marries Pam. Muscle Man and Starla have 6 kids. High Five Ghost and Celia become DJs in Prague. Skips continues working at the park, forever immortal. Everyone grows in different directions, but the hardest part of life? Knowing you can never go back to that time, living those moments. 25 years later, the gang reunites for a final time. They take a group photo in front of Pops' statue before Mordecai and Rigby reminisce about their time at the park, deciding to find their old arcade games. They say their iconic catchphrases one last time before walking off. They aren't kids anymore. This isn't just a see you later. It's goodbye. The screen cuts to an old Hanatronic TV in the afterlife. A cassette labeled regular show ejects. And from beyond, we hear Pops' voice saying, "Jolly good show!" He gave up everything for them, and with that, the series came to a complete end. This finale is about accepting change, letting go, and moving on. Pops' sacrifice represents the idea that some things aren't meant to be won, but to be ended. It also reflects the transition from childhood to adulthood. Mordecai and Rigby spend years avoiding responsibility, clinging to their youth. But in the end, they grow up, move on, and start new lives. And finally, it's about how memories shape us. Pops may be gone, but his impact remains. His friends carry him in their hearts, and no matter how much time passes, he will always be with them. On top of this being the last episode in the entire series, the amount of tears I cried watching this needs to be studied. And that's it, guys. Subscribe if you want more cartoon videos, and be sure to binge watch all the other videos on my channel.